It's driving me insane. Silence rattles in my brain. Yeah, I gotta get away. Always waiting for the fall. So I built my towers tall, wandering through these empty halls.
Hello and welcome to my channel. Can you tell I'm feeling like a chicken this? Eh? You're welcome to my channel. This is Kemafrik and my name is Kemi Omorugbe. In this video, I'll be showing you how to make this chic outfit, you know? It looks so elegant and I can assure you that it's one of the easiest things you can sew. Really, once you get the pattern right, you can just go ahead and stitch all the sides together and you're done. I followed a tutorial on Kim's Dave channel to create this. So if you want more clarification, I'll be putting a link to that video in the description box. You can check it out. Without wasting so much time, because we're in a hurry to look chic, let's get right into the video. I made use of these materials for this project. I have my fabric here. I made use of scuba fabric. So whatever fabric you're using, make sure it's very stretchy because you won't be needing any fastening for this. And then I have my curved ruler, my tape measure, scissors, my pattern papers, and my pen. So you need your pattern paper to be put on fold because it's asymmetrical. So you need like the full front and the full back. And these two will be cut exactly the same way. So I'll be starting by creating a margin at the top of my paper, just to indicate the start point of my measurement. Then I'll proceed to mark my vertical measurement. So I marked out the bust point, which is my shoulder to the bust, at 10.5 inches, and the shoulder to the waist, which is my half length, at 17 inches. And thereafter I marked my hip line at 25.5 inches from the shoulder and the full length of the dress. At this point I marked 45 inches, but I had to reduce this further when it was time to cut because of the length of my fabric and the direction of the stretch. So I'm just marking all these points all over again so I can get straight lines and draw out the horizontal lines. Now I have my bust line right here, so I'll be connecting these dots together to create the lines. The bust line, the waist line, the hip line, and the hem line. Let's label these lines. So we have the bust line, the waist line, the hip line, and the hem. At the top of the pattern, I'm marking the shoulder width divided by 2. Remember, our paper is on fold, right? So I'm marking 7.5 inches. Please feel free to use your own measurement. I have a video on how to take body measurements. You can check it out. So from this point, I'll create a slant downward, and the slant I have here is about 8 inches. At this point, I'm marking the upper arm circumference divided by 2. And I made use of about 6 inches here. I'll go ahead now to mark the horizontal measurement. That's the circumference divided by 4 because we're dealing with a quarter of the body. So at the bust line, I mark the bust circumference divided by 4. And at the waist line, I'll mark the waist circumference divided by 4. Then at the hip line as well, mark the hip circumference divided by 4. At the hemline, I'll be taking out 2 inches from what I marked out at the hip line. So this is just to make it more fitted around the nail and to just give it a better look generally. Now I can go ahead to connect the markings. In order to create the kimono sleeve, I'll come downward by 1 inch from the bust line and connect it to the dots I made while marking out the upper arm. I will then proceed to smoothen it out and connect this curve to the line from the shoulder, and that will in turn serve as the sleeve opening. I will now proceed to cut out this pattern. So remember that this is on fold along the center front / center back because they're essentially the same. We're using the same piece to cut out the front and the back. And here's the look when you open it up. The next step is to place a paper underneath because we'll be slashing from one armhole to the edge of the other shoulder. So I'm just connecting these 2 points together, and we'll be slashing from the shoulder and leaving just a tiny little bit as the armhole of the other side. So now I'll be opening up this part by 7 inches. You can open it wider if you want a wider opening on one of the shoulders. Now I'm taping down these pieces just to keep it in place, and I'll be connecting this point right to the edge of the sleeve on that side. So to create a facing for this piece, I'm marking 2 inches upward, and I'll be connecting this dots together. That's 2 inches above the neckline. You know, we have a straight neckline here, so above the neckline, and I'll be cutting out the excess piece I have here. So this is just to allow me fold this over before cutting, so that way my facing fits right into the sleeve line. So the facing is a continuous piece with the body, so you don't need to cut an extra flap for the facing. You have it right as part of the main outfit. Here I have my pattern placed on 2 layers of fabric. I actually underestimated the quantity of fabric this will need. That's because by the time you slash open the shoulder area, it kind of has a way of expanding the pattern. I also had to reduce the length of the dress. That's because of the direction of the stretch of my fabric, so take note of that while making yours. So I'm cutting out this pattern without any sewing allowance. That's because the fabric is very stretchy, so I'll be taking out the sewing allowance from this. I don't have any extra inches for sewing allowance, so that will help tighten it around the body and make it look more fitted. Here is the pattern for the sleeve, and the upper part has the same measurement we have at the upper arm of the dress, and the lower arm is basically the wrist circumference. And to know the length of the sleeve you need, just come over here and measure the length from here, and that will be part of your entire length. So what you have left should be the entire length of the sleeve minus the measurement you just took. Now I'm proceeding to cut out the sleeve on fabric. I added a sleeve hem allowance of 1 inch and the side without an allowance. Then at the upper part I need ½ an inch because I'll be sewing it onto the dress. Now it's sewing time. I have the front and back piece laid together, and I'll be starting by stitching from the facing down through the side of the sleeve on both sides. So I'll be sewing this part by ½ an inch. Once I'm done sewing these parts together, I'll go ahead to put a notch at the junction between the facing and the main cloth. That's so it relaxes properly. So I'll also go ahead to attach the seam allowance of the facing to that of the bodice. So here, that is the sleeve opening, and I'll just pick up the piece of sleeve we cut out and we'll be stitching it to the sleeve opening of the dress by ½ an inch. Now I have the sleeve attached, and the next point is to sew the side seams together. So before doing that, I'll have to make sure that these 2 pieces are well positioned together and we don't have them shifting and straying away. So I'll be sewing from the sleeve opening, that's the wrists now, sewing through the armhole to the sides and to the hem of the dress to close off the side seam, and we'll be sewing by 1 inch. Because this fabric doesn't fray, I'll be using the pinking shear to cut out the edges, so it just makes some nice looking zigzag cuts at the sides of the dress. You can definitely make use of an overlocker. I had issue with some of the seam ripping because of the stretchy nature of the fabric, so you should definitely do what Kim Dave recommended by sewing with zigzag stitch at the side, so that way it allows it to stretch. The last step here is to close up the hem, and I'll be folding and sewing by 1 inch seam allowance. Finally, here is my dress. I absolutely love it. I love the color, I love the fit. This is one simple dress that will give you so much class. You should definitely try this. And that is all. It's as simple as that. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this far. You can drop your comments and suggestions in the comment section. Follow us on Instagram, Kemafrik_fashion. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and watch. I have so many videos already, so you have a whole range of videos to watch. So keep binge watching and have a beautiful day. See you in the next video. Bye.